The Alexander Trauner Art Film Festival. Our next masterclass presenter is mostly known about the series which is called 24, but he also worked on such huge productions as Dracula by Francis Ford Coppola or Hook by Spielberg. For him, production design is good when it's invisible. And now he's going to give his lecture about production design. It's not rocket science. Please welcome on stage Joseph Hodges. The floor is yours.
Thank you for all coming. Thank you, Ava, for inviting me for this week. It's been quite a fascinating experience. From my two other jury members, Francisco DP, who freely acknowledges that he's, I think, only done one movie with a production designer, to Barnabas, director, whose movie yesterday was an amazing piece of work. Very humble man. To shoot what he accomplished in 5 days on that budget. And when I ask him questions about a costume, because he really, when we do that, he's not, at one point you did use the words, I don't care about the production design. But your instinctual choices, when we talked about when I kept saying about the costumes for the priest in the cell, you didn't know why you made those choices, but they were beautiful choices. And so it's been an incredible, and you should watch your Master Game Barnabas's movie, because it's for, like I say, for the money and the time, incredible piece of work. So I want to start by saying I didn't go to film school. So I am unburdened by the box, and I'll talk sometimes about production designers that I've met in the past who, again, weren't in this box, that they had to follow rules. I went to architectural school, and you'll see I'll go through as fast as I can, my brief history of how I got into the industry, and you can see from day one I kind of thought a little differently than the people around me. So I went to Brighton University, and the first project we were ever asked to do was in Brighton, where I went, there are these rolling hills, and on top of the hill was a car park, and what they wanted to do was our project was to build a shop where they sell hamburgers and drinks. And we were just new architectural students, so we've started learning about bricks and whatever. So everyone is designing a box on top of this beautiful hill. And I look at this hill and I go, I'm not putting a box on this beautiful hill. So in the car park, I dig down and I use timber logs, and I create this structure, and it has a rolling roof on it. And this was my first project, at which point I guess the tutors knew that they were in trouble. So that was my first project. And again, I think I learned to develop my own film then, because again, everyone was doing drawings, but I wanted this photograph and it had to be big, and I wanted to paint on it to be as photorealistic as I could. But this was the first time I ever tried it. The second project we were given was a windsurfers clubhouse. It was on the beach, and again, it had a bar and something, and everybody is building a box on the brick, because all they really care about, 95% of the students, is the engineering of it. It's got to work as a building. So this is my second project, and you can see the size of a man. Because the idea for me, one, it was a sculpture, and you'll see a theme through this whole talk, I hope, of my playfulness. When you're out at the sea and you're looking back, where is the clubhouse? You'll be able to see this clubhouse. It's huge. It's not just a little brick building. So in my third year, I did a cycling stadium, and then in my fifth year, I actually did a film studios on the site where in London now there's the Shakespeare Playhouse. But so to do architecture, you go to school for 3 years, you go out to work for a year, and then you go back for 2 years. And in my year out to work, I went to work for British Rail. And you're supposed to just go and work in an office and learn to do the mechanical drawings. And at the time, British Rail were painting their stations. Before, they had just, for cheapness, painted everything black, grey, white, whatever. And at that time, they were coming up with colour schemes for different stations. And I think my first project was Vauxhall Station, and because they didn't know what to do with me. So they stuck me in a corner, and I was doing these colour schemes. And I was doing this railway station. And I have no idea how I got the project. But they wanted a waiting room designed on this platform. They were doing the waiting rooms all over the country. And waiting rooms are really usually an enclosed space. And I always felt they weren't very safe, especially as a woman, dark night, or a man, I don't know. You're hidden away. So I designed this waiting room that was very open, and you could see into it. And the top, these pictures here, this is the color scheme for the station. But then this building, the top that is painted the rust color, should have been black. Because I left, I designed it. I was only there a year, and by the time I left, they hadn't even started building it. And my original design was for a black roof. It was supposed to float. And I think it was a bit longer and a bit wider. It had to float, but they had to cut it. I think I was told that they had to cut it in more narrower because of safety of the trains or something like that. But again, what I find funny about this story is that there was no art director on set watching the build. So when they built this, I have no reason why they didn't just paint it black. In this, I've painted it in Photoshop. I just blackened it up last week to give you an idea. And again, the concept was to have it as an open waiting room. But if you know Lego, that was my playfulness. This is a Lego building. They only ever built one. And every time I'm on a train going through Vauxhall Station, I reminded, oh my God, there's my building. But it's clean. It's 40 years ago I did this, and it's still, because it's tile work and it's clean, and it doesn't look 40 years old. So at some point during my, I think, second or third year at university, I was a polytechnic then, I went to see a movie called Blade Runner. And this is the shot that made me think, one day I would like to make a movie. Because to me, this shot, this ceiling, this roof was so real. And I guess that this was a set that they had built in this location. And now I look, as a production designer, you go, he must have been gone crazy because I could see raw wood. And it must have been a shot that they hadn't planned because they would have painted that raw wood. It's just a bit off. But the dressing on here, the realism, was what I went, oh, one day I want to be a production. I want to work on a movie. I didn't know the word production design. And I assumed that I'd work my career as an architect. I would become a famous architect, and somebody would be doing a movie, and they would ask me to design their movie. So at that time, that's what I thought. So I finished university. I went to work for 2 months, and a friend of mine who I'd known since they were 5, we knew each other from Mallorca, where my ancestral home is. We got together that summer, and she went back to America, and I went back to England to start working as an architect. But she became ill, so I jacked in my job, much to the dismay of my parents. After 6 years of university, I left my job as an architect to be with this person and help her. And by going to America, I ended up meeting an art director who, they had had the fire at Universal. So everything, the back lot had burnt down. And everything's union in America. And because there's nobody available in the union to do drawings, so a production designer needed drawings done. And this art director that I'd met introduced me to her, and I got my first job, which was this sitcom, Down Home. Now, I knew nothing about making television, movies, how the industry works, and this is just for the pilot. And in the pilot, there's a model that appears, because it's a small town, and construction are coming in, and they're going to build this resort. And in the script, there's a model. Well, I didn't know there's a model department and how things work, their union. I build this little model at the weekend. It's all, it's just me as a set designer. And anyway, by working on this show, I get in the union. And I only did 30 days. You only need to do 30 days on a show, and you get in the union. But this was at the Paramount lot. And because I was young and had no fear, I walked into the Star Trek art department and asked to meet the production designer. And this was the next generation. Met the and walked into the office, and instead of them going, the first gentleman I met was Mike Okuda, and I'd like to meet the production designer. He said, sure, come with me. And I went to meet the production designer. And I showed him my work, and he said, you know what, we only have one set designer, a senior. I will ask the production if I can have a junior next year, because we have so much work. 2 weeks later, I think he called, and I started work on Star Trek. So this is just one of the quick sets on Star Trek. And then my production designer, like many people I've met, love my work, and trust me, I'm supposed to be doing working drawings, just these drawings. I'm not supposed to be designing the sets. He used to come in and he said, Joseph, you read the script? Yes. Well, design me something, I'll be back tomorrow. So I was designing, the senior set designer was doing the working drawings, and I was designing these sets. And then my life was amazing. It was the best job in the world. But when you get into the union, you get in as a junior at B, then an A, and then another 3,000 hours, you become a senior. And when I got into the union, for some reason, they made me a junior A, so I only had to do 3,000 hours before I became a senior. And they couldn't afford, I heard the rumor that I was going to be let go, because I only did a season and a bit, and I'd already done 3,000 hours, so I was going to be let go. They didn't want to pay $80 more a week. So my world fell apart, and I thought I was going to lose this job. And the graphic artist in the art department said, oh, I'm meeting these art directors at lunch. You should come to lunch. No, thank you. I couldn't. And she kept on and on and on. And eventually, just before lunchtime, she persuaded me to go. So I go to this meeting. I go to this lunch with these people, a bunch of art directors. And eventually, of course, one of them says, what's wrong with you, Mr. Happy? I said, I just lost the job of my life. And they said, oh, you don't want to do television, you want to do movies. And so he said he got a piece of paper, and he wrote down a telephone number, and I called. And that afternoon, they interviewed me, and I got the job. Anyway, I'll carry on talking. I got the job. Norman Garwood was the production designer, and went back to Star Trek with a bottle of champagne and told my production designer I was leaving. And he said, you don't have to leave straight away. I was like, no, I'd like to give you 3 days' notice. I have to give you 3 days' notice. Okay, well, you better call production. And I called production, and then the same thing. Oh, you don't have to leave so soon. And I said, no, I'd like to leave. I have another job. What is this job? And I said, I don't know, it's about Peter Pan and Spielberg's directing it. And so the first movie I ever worked on was Hook. And again, it was an amazing experience. What's this slide? This is the sets, but we would build models. There's me with long hair. This is the model painted, and this is the set. So, but we worked on it for about, and then I was in control of, not in control, but I oversaw a lot of the Tinkerbell stuff. So we would build it all, not green screen, we would build it all full size. And if I can go back. Like this is the real top of the grandfather's clock. And then this is it built full size. And again, I didn't have that much experience. So if there was a scratch on the model, there would be a scratch on this. And there was never a cut from one to the other, so it didn't really matter. I mean, we built the Barbie house. It's funny, Barbie. We built a Barbie house full size. It had to be, anyway, it doesn't matter. So that was my first movie. And then, as we were finishing this, there was a movie starting up on the lot, and it was Dracula. And the story goes, what I heard at the time was the movie wasn't supposed to be made. Francis was on a pay-or-play, the DP was on a pay-or-play, and pay-or-play means that they'll pay you even if the movie gets cancelled. So they didn't want to make the movie, and they just wanted the money. So they let the production designer design these sets. And the hall in Dracula's castle was so big that the fireplace at the end was so big that they had trees in it. And the budget came in at 30 million. And Sony said, so we're obviously not going to spend 30 million on the set. So, Francis goes, so, let's just cancel the movie. And Sony goes, no. There's this young art department next door that have just done Hook. And Norman Garwood, the production designer, is not available, but the two art directors, we're going to make production designers. And they made Andy and Tom Sanders the art directors, and so we moved straight over to Dracula. And I'm not sure, I forgot a photograph of it. I thought of it last night. On this set, on Hook, behind all these ships, there's all these rocks. Half the stage is rock, and then you look out to sea. Well, those rocks, because we used the same set, the rocks in Dracula, where there's a horse chase. There was a figure of 8. We did it all on stage, and we just continued these rocks. So they were the same rocks. It's terrible photographs, but they're so old. So we did Dracula. And again, we have no concept of what we can and cannot do. And so the idea behind the castle was that Dracula had traveled the world, and they had been building the Eiffel Tower at the time, and he liked that modern technology. And so his castle that was falling down, we introduced all this steel work. And the set decorator wanted this furniture designed, and he showed me a book of Bugatti furniture that I'd never, again, I hadn't studied anything. So amazing furniture. So I designed this bed and the sofa, and that was Dracula. Then I got a call after that to do Apollo 13, and I turned the job down. Why would I want to do something that exists or existed? And I've been doing fantasy. I've done Star Trek, and Hook, Dracula, fantasy stuff. So I turned the job down. And I don't know why, 2 weeks passed, and they called again, and they said, please come and work on it. And I said yes, and I went to do Apollo 13. And it was the most amazing experience for me, because it was the first time I created something that existed. So the enjoyment of, one day we were on stage, and somebody who really worked in Houston was on stage, and he forgot where he was. And somebody said, where's the toilets? And he said, oh, you go out those double doors, go down the corridor. Oh no, I'm not in Houston. So I watch now real footage and, and the numbers on columns, and it was just amazing, I guess, after all this fantasy, to create something that was believable. And also another story from Apollo 13. So the boys go and experience zero-G in KC-135. And it's only 20 seconds. The airplane goes up, it comes down, and on the top of the parabola, they have zero-G. And the Monday they go away for the weekend, and they come back, and there's a video going around the office of them all floating around. And I see this video, and I say to my production designer, God, that airplane's really big. We should build the sets in the airplane. And of course, he's like, you're nuts. That would be stupid. So nothing happens. But I'm curious, so I call NASA, because we got contacts at NASA. I call NASA, and I get the dimensions of the airplane, and I do a quick layout of the sets in the airplane. And I think I have to make the sets this much smaller to fit them in. So there's a drawing done. So it's a Friday afternoon, and I'm about to go home, and the production designer calls because he's in a production meeting, and he says, on Monday morning, what I'd like you to do is do a drawing of the sets in the airplane. It's done, I tell him. What do you mean it's done? It's done, it's here. Well, bring it to the meeting, and I'll see you Monday morning. So I take it to the meeting, I leave it. Monday morning, he comes in, he goes, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to build the sets in the airplane. I was like, oh, whose idea was that? He said, well, Spielberg was looking at the video of them floating around in the airplane, and he said to Ron Howard, you should build the sets in the airplane. And that's why the sets are built in the airplane. And then there's various other things that happened. I think I did Sequest and Deep Space Nine. And then I was still a set designer. Then I got my first movie as an assistant art director. And it was a movie called Virtuosity. And the production designer, who is one of my closest and loveliest man, Nilo Rodis, he was one of the original three. George Lucas, the same, outside the box. Lucas was making Star Wars. He went to the industrial design school, looked at students' work, hired Nilo, because he didn't know how to make movies. And Nilo, this is Nilo's sketch. And Nilo, I met him briefly on a Friday, because the art director just wanted me to introduce me to him. And on the Saturday, the phone rings, and it's Nilo Rodis, and he goes, Joseph, because he calls everybody, he calls me Joe-san. Joe-san, this is Nilo Rodis. And I'm thinking, oh, they've cancelled the movie. He's being polite, and he said, Joe-san, I just wanted to let you know that there are those in this world that are kept down by those around them, and this is your time to shine. I look forward to seeing you on Monday morning. He hung up. And this is Nilo Rodis, is the man who designed Boba Fett. He's famous he's one of the legends in the Star Wars world, one of the original designers. He designed Buzz Lightyear. And I do this because the reason Buzz Lightyear is that shape is because a child picks it up like this, and it's comfortable to fly him around the room. So Nilo told me the art director is really the production designer. I just like to stay in my office and draw. So Richard is going to take care of everything else, and you can have as much rope as you want to hang yourself. Cool. So Nilo would do these sketches, but he'd also do, that's perhaps the final sketch of the thing that goes around the VR people. But these are Nilo's sketches. So I've taken these sketches and I'm building these sets on stage. Well, of course, at some point, the art director's getting a bit upset because I'm designing the show or doing the fun bit. I don't know. But he takes Nilo to set one day and he goes, look what Joseph's doing. And Nilo says, three things. Is the scene we need to shoot here still shootable in this set? And Richard says, yes, it's possible. Is Joseph over budget? No, he's not over budget. Is Joseph having fun? Yeah, I think he's having fun. Then my work here is done, and he left. So that's the relationship. That's, again, a relationship I try with some of the people I've hired before, that you hire good people, people that know what they're doing, and you let them do it. You don't manage them the whole time. Anyway, Virtuosity, did a couple of other things, and then eventually, Nilo, that's right, Nilo. Nilo is going to production design a movie for John Hughes, and he says to me, I've told John Hughes that I'm bringing you along, we're going to shoot it in New York, and you will be the production designer, you're getting the production designer credit, but I will come until John Hughes is comfortable with you, and then I'll leave. So I literally have the ticket to go to New York. Excuse me. And at that point, agents are now calling for me to hire their art directors. And, you know, they'll call me the next, I said, I'm just flying to New York tomorrow. And then they ask, do you have an agent? No, I don't have an agent. Oh, well, we should meet. 3 agents did that. Well, literally that evening, Nilo calls and the movie's been cancelled. Don't know why. Very sorry, Joe-san, it's cancelled. So the following day, I call the agents, let them know the movie's been cancelled, but I still want to meet. None of them want to meet now because I'm not doing the movie, except one. And nice man, John Fury, who we used to have dinner perhaps once or twice a year. A lovely man who at the last dinner we had together said to me, my problem was that I saw the world how it should be, not how it is. And it's sad because he killed himself about a year later. So, but he got me my first little movie, Pirates movie, kids movie, and then got me 24, which I interviewed for the pilot. I didn't get the pilot. They shot it all on location, and then because the production designer, in his words, was too good for television, wanted to do movies, he left, and now the showrunner who really wanted me to do the show originally then said to the studio, now can I have Joseph? And they made me interview with the studio again. I had to jump through all the hoops. But eventually I got the job. And I sat down with Joel and we watched the pilot. And then I said, I wanted to change some things. I don't like the brickwork and the wood timbers of the main set. I wanted to change it. I want to make it high-tech. More high-tech. Give it a more stylized look. So he said, fine. So I went away for 3 days, and on the 3rd day I wanted to do a presentation. And on the 3rd day, Stephen Hopkins, the director, came to my office and he says, a little bird's told me that Joel is a little upset because he hasn't seen you for 3 days. You should go and talk to him. So I went to talk to him, and as I walk into his office, I said, Joel, I just wanted to let you know I'm just working on a presentation, and I'm the way I work, and he said, let me just stop you there. This is the way I work. I'm a hands-on producer. I need to see everything, every set, every blah, blah, blah. I was like, fine. I'm just doing a presentation. I'm doing the drawings. I was going to show you them this afternoon. But let's go to the office, and I'll show you the set. So I showed him the drawings, the renderings, everything. Everything is fine, no problem. And for the first, I don't know how many episodes, we did the same thing. I showed him the sets. I'd walk him through the sets, everything. Until we got to one episode where there's a police station. And I asked him, so what kind of police station do you want? And he says, Hill Street Blues, typical American. And I said, Joel, I'm trying to create a show here, a stylized show, I don't know what I described him. I'd like to do something a little different for this police station. And he said, like what? So I said, well, there's a scene, because The Matrix had just come out. I said, there's a scene in The Matrix where Keanu Reeves' mouth gets sealed up. He's being interrogated. And I want to do the whole police station like this room. Light green, it's just squares, it's very simple, very modern. He said, okay, give it a go. So I designed this police station, and it's this. And as I walk Joel through this set, he doesn't say a word, and we finish the walkthrough, and he turns to me and he says, okay, from now on, you're my production designer. We don't need to talk about sets. This is your show. You run it how you see fit. So because, again, on 24, most TV shows, you prep for 6, 7, 8 days, then you shoot 6, 7, 8 days. A director gets one script. So from the first day you get a script to the last day of shooting, you've got perhaps 16 days. And what happens usually on a television show is you design a set, it goes to committee, you redesign it, it goes to committee, they then approve it, but you're getting too close to where you're shooting it, so you have to work the weekends. Now it gets more expensive. You make the set a little smaller, and by the time you get to shoot it, you got this box. Or whatever it is. But it's not what... But on 24, a director used to get 2 scripts, 16 days prep, 16 days shoot. So from the first day of prep to the last day of shooting, you've got nearly 4 weeks. And because there's no committee, I'm just designing, my money is so much more. Other production designers used to complain, why don't we get the money that the guy on 24 gets? Well, you get more than he does, but because we don't give him much money. But he has I'm not in the studio, I have a big warehouse, I build sets, I leave them up, I convert them, I'll show you my conversions, I convert them. So that's why 24 I like to think, had a very rich look, cinematic look. There was only one person that was designing. Directors would come in, oh, I love this house I shot last week. I say, well, show me photographs. And they show me photographs, and I go, yeah, no, that's not this show. What do you mean? I love this house. Yeah, but it's not the look of this show. And I think there was a question yesterday, a difference between TV shows or for me, difference between a TV show and a movie. If the director wants gold lame wallpaper, they will get gold lame wallpaper. But on a television show, we have directors visiting. You're coming into our world. You follow our rules. So, again, that's the way I treated it. Whether it's real or not, that's the way I worked. Now, my influences as a child was... Oops. It's not working. Hang on. Thunderbirds. I grew up with this TV show of puppets and models, and it was set in the future, and this is the architecture that they used. So to me, in my head, it was molded that this was the future, this was cool, and so when I got free reign and I can do what I want and I can have some fun, this was Mr. Tracy's desk, and this was the desk in, 24, the president's desk. It's me having fun. Even when we did Star Trek, in the graphics on the Enterprise, there's an airplane, a duck, a Porsche, and a rat. We were having fun. But then I guess, at some point it clicks in, it's like I am in a world where I'm telling stories. And how do I design things, how the camera will see it, to tell the story. So things like this next slide. So in one episode, early on, again, when they started to realize it was a bit nuts, there was this man being tortured on a bed. So this is my design for the bed. Because not that it's uncomfortable and a bed that looks like it's you torture. You can do these shots You can't do these shots on a bed, a real bed. You can't get that man's face that close. So I start developing how I tell stories through pictures, I guess. Again, another set on 24. We never see much of this character. I've got to build a set. We're shooting this character, so I've never seen a room with pipes like this. It's just a design feature, but it means we can shoot stuff like this. So we did 3 years of 24, I think the first 3 seasons. And then the warehouse I was in, they were knocking down, so we had to move further out into the valley. And they just wanted me to repeat the sets. We're just going to take the sets and build them. And I was like, it's the same money. If we're going to build again, we're all bored of this orange and grey that I'd used before. Can we? And now everybody in television is doing orange and grey because 24 was probably the most successful show at the time. It was successful, but it was the only show that had a look. You had West Wing and ER. ER, it was a hospital. The West Wing, you're just in the West Wing. I'm saying it's boring. It's boring. So I asked Joel. I actually walked into his office and got down on my knees and went, Joel, please let me build a new CTU. And he said, sure. Now, close to where we were shooting the stage, there was this crazy warehouse. It was just a warehouse. But the front that had some offices had this structure that originally when it was built, I bet, because there would have been no trees, the reflection in this glass, that shot, imagine that tree not there, the reflection of these feet, I thought was beautiful. And I wanted to use this as if we ever needed the exterior of CTU, I wanted to use this car park as our exterior. And like I say, the interior was just a big warehouse. It was just a big empty space. So I designed the interior of CTU. And again, people ask, were they crazy feet? There's no reason for them. It's just design. It's me. It's James Bond. Who cares? So we built this set. Again, at the time, this was 20-something years ago. And even in the computer, to do those feet was really, really difficult. But this was the best I could do as a computer rendering. But again, this was the stage where we built it. But this is a computer, of course. Like, this is the computer rendering, but this is the set. So it's not, and again, when I used to do stuff that was quite photorealistic, I realized people would then sit around a table and discuss the color of the floor. Is it really going to be that wood and this? And it's like, it's a wooden floor. Trust me, it'll be fine. So I used to run it through Photoshop filters to make it look like an ink drawing. I'm not sure. No, I hadn't these. I think some later on you'll see that I run them through a filter, because otherwise we'll be spending all day talking about the color of the wood. So these were the 20, and then again, TV shows were always designed boxes. It was corridor, a West Wing, they would start a conversation and they'd go down here, and if you know where you are, you've ended up where you started. It used to drive me crazy. So I designed these sets to be, you could shoot intimate scenes, but also you could be on a long lens, because also 24 was very voyeuristic. It was shot in a way that any moment you felt like an actor could turn around and see you. We're always shooting behind things. So either very close and tight, or very long lenses, and a long way away. But again, I like beautiful spaces. And we built this in 6 weeks. I don't know. There's a time lapse somewhere online that my construction crew had been working with. They're amazing. Some of the, like in England, like the guys who did all the ships, the plaster work, it's just amazing. You got a good crew. I remember that I introduced the blue into the concrete because in one of my computer renderings I wanted to put moonlight, and suddenly, I don't know, this blue in the concrete. It was just a bit different and it doesn't really show in the photographs. So this was 24. And again, see, one of my things is I hate, so when you build sets, you have gimbaled windows. And you watch TV shows, and they've gimbaled it this way, and you cut away, and you come back, and someone's moved it, and it's over here, and sometimes it's out the frame. And I hate that. So most of the time, I use louvered windows. It's always louvered windows. Then, this was third or fourth season, very Thunderbirds. So the president is supposed to be at Camp David. And I think the West Wing had done a show at Camp David or a similar place. And Camp David sounds cool, but it's just cabins in the woods. It's ugly, it's horrible. So I asked if I could do my thing. And again, I break all the rules of what I was, been told. You don't put water on a set, permanent set. It's going to leak. You don't put water, and you have a backing. But I've put water because I've got a ceiling that comes out, a roof that comes out, so I'm not shooting off the set, because this is all gardens and stuff. There's no backing here. So I can reflect the light from the water into the set. And it never leaked. It was great. People wanted it. It was only perhaps a foot deep. And an exterior we shot somewhere, it was a horse ranch, so that's why it sort of had a horse logo. But things like the table, again, if you know the World War II plane Spitfire, my favorite airplane, I design a table the shape of a Spitfire wing. But also originally I wanted to make it look like it was cut out of a huge piece of timber and we were going to ink in dates through history. But we never got that far. But like fixtures, design that. Again, there's no influence from anybody. Here's the retreat. This is what it is. No committee, I mean to say. The bedroom, doors. People used to ask me, what is that on the doors? I was like, I don't know, but it's boring to have. I want to light through the door. The DP wants to light through the door, but I want to break it up a bit. I'm putting pieces of wood on it. There's no reason. And when it's shot in magazines and things, it was just, it was a beautiful set. I think that year I got nominated for an Emmy for that one, or Art Directors Awards or something, but how do I put it? The producers came, they all thought I was going to win, and I told them, no, Ugly Betty will win because it was a much bigger art department. They shot in New York, they shot in Los Angeles, and I think my art department consisted of me, a set designer, a graphics person, an art department coordinator, and that's it. There's no art directors or anything. It's just me and a set designer. When we did the first couple of episodes of a season to do the major sets, perhaps I had two other set designers, but it was that. Whereas most art departments had a production designer, an art director, two art directors, an assistant art director, or two assistant art directors. And that's in Los Angeles, and if this other person's got an art department in New York, they've got at least 10 votes more than me, and so I said, Ugly Betty was going to win, and they weren't. They were shocked when Ugly Betty won, and I went off and carried on drinking. So that's this set. We've seen this set. This is the interior. And then sometimes I design sets just because of an image, a color scheme, or something. A lot of the sets were only, the color schemes were because I was into Formula One, and this week we were going to do McLaren colors, and this week we were going to do whatever. And then, so this picture, the top left-hand corner, I don't know what movie it was, something about NATO, the United Nations. And the bottom is a picture from another puppet show from the same man, Captain Scarlet. So this season, I had to design another bunker. I'm always designing bunkers for 24. So this is my computer rendering. Again, run through. Now I'm running them through filters because it looks more like a drawing, and we're not going to discuss the wood grain or whatever every day, or all day. No reason for any of this, except, you know, a homage to Captain Scarlet. But the ceiling, why have you got a ceiling like that? Well, to me, I'm tired of the DP leaving stuff up in the ceiling and it's in the shot. So hopefully, if I build it like this, he can hide his lights up there, leave them up there. They've got big holes in the beams, so he can run his cables through there. But it's playful. And again, I think the middle of the map is Mallorca. So that's, again, one of those things. I just like, oh, I'm going to put Mallorca in. No one knows, just me. So Nilo wrote this when we were doing Virtuosity. Virtuosity was he explained to me the design. He said, Joseph, you see this windowsill? There's no detail here. There's no need for a sill, whatever. And I did a set where, with that, if there was no need for a detail, you get rid of it. You take all this stuff out. And so there was a scene in Virtuosity where Denzel Washington was supposed to go into a room, take his clothes off, go into another room, get scanned, and then go into another room. So it's 3 rooms. So I designed this set like a cattle trough. It was just a corridor. And they had doors. But to make a door work, you need, well, you have hinges and a big piece of wood. But if you make the hinge big enough, you don't need a door. So that's why in that show and this here, they're huge hinges. That was the design concept behind that. More pictures of the set. There was the doors closed. It's just a big, massive hinge. Beautiful, thick. I think we saw them close once. But we again, I think when this was the beginning of the season, I asked Joel, where is this, what is going to happen eventually in this bunker? And it's like, eventually we're going to be locked down in there, so that's why I put doors in. But again, here's a shot from Captain Scarlet where the angels used to hang out. And here's my set in 24, the same sort of space. It's not. The white panels there are exactly the same as these sort of black panels. But again, I had them white in here, and DP didn't want them white, and so we painted them black. And then, okay, now we're into year 4. Now when I'm reading scripts, and again, because I'm a little, sometimes things come out of my mouth without me thinking it through too much. So there was a script for the beginning of this season where in the opening scene, the nuclear bomb goes off and Jack is described. So Jack rounds the corner, and in the middle of a street is a helicopter, and trapped underneath one of the rotor blades is the pilot. So, of course, I'm in the production meeting, and we're all reading this, and I go, well, how the fuck does that happen? What do you mean? And the writers are there. What do you mean? How does the pilot fall out of the helicopter and get trapped underneath the rotor blade without it slicing it in half? And at that point, they knew how I worked. And they went, "No, don't worry, you'll fix it." So near Los Angeles Airport, there was all these buildings that they were knocking down. It was just after 9/11. Because that's the thing. 9/11 happened while we were shooting the pilot. So that's the time we were. So they were knocking down all these buildings to extend the airport to do a big security area. So I said, let's do this helicopter, crashed into the roof of this building, and Jack can climb up the side of the building, pull the pilot to freedom, to safety. And as he pulls the pilot out, the helicopter falls, and there's a big explosion. much more cinematic, interesting than coming around a corner and finding a helicopter in the middle of the street, but slightly more expensive. And so there are big arguments about, not big arguments, there are discussions. And I don't win. We are not putting this on a roof. We can put it in the front garden, but I am not allowed to put it on the roof. Except if your friend and closest, confidant on the show is producer-director who does every other episode. But he's not doing every 2 episodes. John used to do every 2 episodes. So out of 24, John did 12, and then other people would come in and do other 2s. So I tell John my problem, that they won't let me put this on the roof. So he comes to the scout, and I'm explaining, I think the crew's there. I can't remember. I think the crew's behind me. And I'm explaining to John what we're supposed to be doing with the scene, and this is where we're going to put the helicopter, and I'm pointing up to the roof. And John goes, okay, very interesting, very interesting. Wouldn't it be better to put the helicopter up there? And of course, like Spielberg, he's got a little bit more power. And so they find the money and we build the helicopter up on the roof. Much more work for me. I could have come in that morning of the shoot, just put the helicopter in the street, would have been fine. But that's, I think, part of my job as a production designer. The way I work is that, and it was one of those things on 24. I never wanted to treat the audience. I wanted to treat them always with respect. You don't. I don't know how to put it. But if I'm pissed off with something in the script, it's like, what is this? Why is you're not respecting the audience. So that's why I would do things like this. They would write in the script, there's a room with a piece of vinyl, and the people on the other side have got the virus and they're locked in this room. It's boring. We've seen it a million times. Why don't I have a piece of leftover machinery in this warehouse and I'll make it like a fish tank? And it's, for a better word, it's cool. It's not a plastic room. And like I said, I had this warehouse. This photograph shows that there are 3 different sets because over the course of I don't know how many months, once this was a prison jailhouse and it went down the corridor, and then I guess at some point I had a hospital room where it has the red stripe. So one of those rooms and we're not in the corridor, we're just shooting out. And then there's some other set. So that shows you me keeping sets, and again, why my money went further. And also, look, there's Thunderbird 5, same font. Somebody asked me once about stripes, because one of my things was painting stripes on walls. And was it one of my design things? I don't know how they put it. And it's not. It's like, because the show was set in real time, we would go to perhaps 7 different locations for the same building. But the architecture was different, or they had slightly different looks. But if I paint a big blue line down a corridor and then into a room, and then we go to another location and I paint another blue line, the audience know, oh, I'm still in the same place. So it wasn't one of my, I don't know how to describe it, one of my looks or anything. It was just to tell the audience we're in the same place. But I used to do all the artwork. This was a set. You watch most American shows and they're always in this building. And I changed it. I built all these rolling around walls that we could make it into a corridor. And it was an episode. We had this virus, so I did the artwork that was what I thought. And again, this was a small design studio, and big graphics. I'm into big graphics. Why do a little painting when you could paint a big graphic? And then little things like, because again, there's a there was a part in a story where these 3 men were going to die in this nuclear reactor. And to sell the fact that it's a nuclear reactor, I put a little window in the back there. And nowadays, they would be doing a green screen. But I know we're only going to see this shot from we're only going to see this room from one angle, and they're actually only going to appear on the monitor. So the quality of the backing, although it was fine, but I take a photograph and I make it layers. Some of it's out of focus, so it's not flat. Because once you start putting a backing up and you start moving the camera and the parallax doesn't work, but that's what I kind of do, or did. And then, okay, so again, so we had one set where it was Air Force One. There's no picture. Well, it was that's it, undamaged. And we used it in a number of episodes, but then suddenly, at one point, it crashes. And we're a television show. I can't build a location and have an airplane crashed. So I say, well, what we're going to do is I'm going to pull that back wall out, and I think I'm going to take this side. No, I think I must have built that because I've only got the interior of this wall. I'm going to build a little bit of the exterior, and this is all on stage floor. It's slightly raised up, but what we can do is we'll have a fireman like on his knees, and he'll just sort of come up into the set, and this will me selling Air Force One crashed. And what's interesting about it is I interviewed for a job once, and it got to the point into the interview. And again, interviews for me, I'm not just there to get the job. I'm also there to go, do I want to spend the next 6 months with this person? So in this interview, it actually got to the point where I had decided I didn't really want to. I loved the show, I loved the scripts, but I didn't feel it. I really didn't want to do it. But it got to the point in the interview where the director said, well, I need to shoot 360. I said, what do you mean you need to shoot 360? Well, that sketch of yours, of Air Force One, I couldn't have shot that. So I looked at the producer and I said, I'm sorry, but if you have to shoot Air Force One and we only have this much money, I'm afraid you're going to have to shoot this. So at which point the producer said, thank you very much for coming. It's been a long day. And I left. Oh, interesting about that interview. So the scripts were fantastic. And I flew myself to London for this interview. And I had read the scripts the day before. And I went in, and you'll see, I do paintings and things. And I didn't do any paintings because I spent the time reading these scripts. But I'd gathered some photographs together. And the script was set in Italy, Morocco, and Switzerland. And I went into the interview and I told them, you could shoot all of this in Mallorca. We have Moroccan buildings. We have the way you described the main house with the stonework and the plate glass windows. We could do it all in Mallorca. And the director was like, no, we're shooting in Italy. Okay, fine. So anyway, I left the interview, and 2 months later, a friend of mine, an actor, calls me and he said, you at home in the village? I was like, yeah, I'm at home. Oh, okay, I just finished shooting. I'll come up and we'll have a beer. I said, what are you shooting? And he tells me they're shooting the show that I had interviewed for, and they've been there and shooting it now in Mallorca. They didn't go to Italy. They came to Mallorca to shoot it. And I asked him, how is it working with the director? And he says, it's a nightmare. We rehearse all morning because they have no idea what they want to shoot. And the lead actor, and when you watch the show, his performance is flat because he's been rehearsing all morning. And it was a nightmare. So I was very happy not to have had to do it. Again, a little trick. So here's a little set. That's the set I built. But I take a photograph. I do that in Photoshop or whatever, and then that's the set with the backing. And of course, I walk onto the set, And the director, the DP's put the camera over here, and I was going, no, you have to. We see where I put this cross on the floor? You have to be here. Otherwise, this perspective doesn't work. So there's, I don't know why I have to. There was a big red cross on the floor. But anyway, I'm going to skip through all this stuff. So changing of sets. So this was a President's Retreat in the first season, and in the second season, it changes to this. Oops. So this was the same set, the retreat. And then it becomes Division the next season. This was what we used to call the terrorist's house, family. I think the mother turns out to be, or the whole family, I can't remember. But I think it lasts 6 or 7 episodes, and then it became a bunker. Again, big graphics. What floor are we on? 5. I know we're on 5. Same set. Then it was an apartment. I think there was the apartment in between the house and the bunker. This was the living room. Again, it becomes the bunker. And then, so this was the drawings, so finally to this morning's movie. This was the artwork that I did for the interview with Tommy. I got a phone call, I was going to interview with Tommy, and I think I had a couple of days or whatever, but I do this artwork, and I don't send the artwork because we're doing a Zoom thing. I don't send the artwork because this could be completely wrong, but we start the conversation and I ask a few questions. Are we on the same page? And I realize, yeah, we're kind of thinking the same way. So I said, let me email you some drawings. And it's great because you've got his face on the screen. And he opens the email and you see his, you can see his face. You go, oh yeah, I think we're on the same page. Rafaela, actually, the producer, called me straight after. And she said, Joseph, what did you say to Tommy? He called me straight away and he said, he's my man. I said, I don't know. I just did my thing. He goes, yeah, because he didn't want to interview you. I had presented you, and I guess he'd only seen my work from television. I don't have many credits in film. So he wasn't interested, but she persuaded him to at least take the time and interview me, and he called us straight away and said, I want him as the production designer. So this stuff I'm doing before I've got the job. This was my ideas. Then I get the job and I start building little computer models of how I think that thing was going. And I guess in the script, at that point I didn't realize, or I hadn't got the whole script, I can't remember, because I don't know why I'm designing these millions of containers, because if you've seen the movie, you know there's only 2 containers. But the original container I designed like this. But there was no way that I discovered, there was no way with the workmanship or the skill that of the people that I had in Hungary, not Hungary, sorry. Romania, that I could build that. Let me go back. I could build this shape. The room stayed the same, except for, I did paint the walls because it was so white in the movie, but the whole what was it called, processing place was all very white, because at one location, there was a long corridor. Again, it was white. So our set had to be white, but I brought the blues in. But in the top right-hand corner, you see I have these massive graphics. But we painted the wall. We did painted one because Tommy didn't like it. And he let me paint one and have a look at it, but he decided he really didn't like it, so we got rid of them all. See this yellow here on the walls outside? Again, they were there. So that's why it becomes a much simpler shape. And then, what we got? 20 minutes. So here's a YouTube movie. just 5 minutes of the effects on that we used. Sorry, is it really loud? Oh, I can't turn. Oh no, hang on. That's all real, then it's CG'd. So a couple of things from that. When we started scouting, we scouted roof after roof after roof to find this place where she could jump. And from day one, I was asking the producers, we should just build this in the parking lot. We've got to take all this equipment up onto a real roof. It's dangerous. We've got to put green screen up anyway. We're doing the background. Let me build it in the parking lot. It'd be much cheaper, much safer. No, you're not. We're going to scout. We're going to find this roof. We're finding this roof. And we spent months, or the whole time. I think we were in the middle of shooting, and we still hadn't found this roof. And we found a roof, and it was sort of okay. But again, it's one staircase. It goes up. It's going to take forever. We're going to lose. To me, a production designer's job is when the camera's not rolling, you're wasting money. You're not shooting stuff. So if you can find a location and just use this room over here to fill up your day rather than moving down the road. It's part of my job. So it's a complete waste of time for me, I thought, to go up to a real roof. No, we're going to shoot on this roof, but they do a structural study, and by the time they've reinforced it, by the time we've got crew cameras up there, because it's not that safe, they give me permission to build the roof. And that's what we did. This is all we built, and I build it on the back of the back lot. So I'm not building walls to hang a green screen. I know exactly where I'm going to put it. We're just putting green screen on an existing structure. But I do quick. This was stuff, not real finished renders. This was just ideas to send to the visual effects of what I thought we should be seeing in the background, or an idea of what we should be seeing in the background. And then the bathroom. It was a crazy bathroom, but I wanted this final scene to be bring all the seven sisters together, to have reflections of one person 7 times, or have 6 reflections. So you had all the girls on Monday over here, and that's why the set was designed this way. It was very difficult, everything gimbaled, and there are a few shots in there that you do see 6 reflections, but that's the reason for that set. And Cayman's, she had a view of the future, so again, I do most of the artwork. I do all the artwork. That's the location. It was on the ground floor of this empty office building. We dressed it. I don't think I've got a picture. And then, like the control points or the checkpoints, I can only take the set in the night before. And everyone, you have to be very specific. I want it built. We're going to build it this way so I can bring it in that night. So we start with a 40-foot container. All these pieces are built, and we end up with this. And the whole of this checkpoint, actually, in Costanza, where it was this configuration, we actually had lots of time to build it. It's the other street where it's only half of this that we put in overnight. And I think if you've seen the movie, when I do, one of my pet peeves of movies when they want to put posters up and they never look real because they put posters up. But I do Photoshop work of layers and layers of posters, like it's been there for years. And if you want to, you put this up first, and then you can put your own, individual posters if you need something specific for that location. Again, this was my illustration of this location. That's what it looked like in the movie. I designed the vehicles. I don't have any pictures of the other 2 vehicles that have all the camouflage, because the only reason they have camouflage on them is because they were so ugly. It doesn't matter what I tried, because, again, Raphael had hired somebody out of film school who didn't know anything about transportation, but he'll be great, she said. And all he cared about was putting a blue neon light around these things. And even when I was supposed to present it to Tommy, and he said, we're going to see the vans today. And I was like, mate, I can't, they are so ugly. So what are you going to do? I don't know, I've got to think of something. And that's why I did the camouflage thing. And even the camouflage thing isn't exactly, because I had precisely worked it out, how to make these things disappear. But again, they did their own thing, and it was one of the frustrating things on this movie. But because I was under budget, so my budget for the movie was $1 million. And on the last day, Raphael calls me into the office, and Joseph, you'll be so happy, you're under budget. And I was thinking, 10 grand. I was $100,000 under budget. So again, they had $100,000 extra to spend in other places. And they added, you can't really see it in these photographs, but the stuff to the wheels. And there's another little bit I wanted to say about production design. So when I was an art director, I did this movie for a production designer, and there was a jazz club. And I imagined a jazz club to be brick and a stage and a stage. It's a smoky basement. But this production designer had designed this stage with this ornate plasterwork and alcoves with glimpsed paintings inside them. And it was just, it was a bit crazy, I thought. But anyway, he went to location to deal with some sets, so he was out of Los Angeles. And one day the producer and the director, Joseph, we need you to come to stage with us. And I went down to stage and they're like, what is this? And I don't understand how he got to that point, because the director must have been shown the designs. But anyway, we were at this point. And I said, and I was like, what, this is what you and the production designer have? Well, it's just too distracting. What would you do? And I was like, me? You gotta talk to the production designer. No, we're getting rid of the production designer. We want you to take care of it. So I said, I'll just hang some velvet curtains over this ornate plasterwork, and I'd paint out the paintings, and that's it. And great. The director's fantastic. I love it. Let's do it. And as he walks out, this is the lesson to learn. As he walks out, he says, thank you very much, but I'm really upset because the art department is now $100,000 over budget, and he can now not afford a piece of music that he wanted in this movie. So he can't tell the story that he wants to sell, or use the piece of music to tell his story the way he wants to tell it, because the art department is over budget. Lesson learned then. The final scene, this was my CG, not my CG, my computer illustration. And then quickly, other sets that I've built, submarines for 24, again, the script called for a missile about this big, and I was like, that's not very entertaining. So, because I designed this 15-foot long missile. It's cool, looks great. And I have no idea what an inside of a missile looks like. Somebody asked me once, and I was like, they said, do you do research? And I was like, no, it's chrome balls, it's wires, it's cool. Tintin's rocket had a black and white stripe on it. We put a black and white stripe on it. And again, another time on 24, we had there was a scene at the White House, and at the time they were shooting West Wing, so we went to visit the West Wing set. Now, to take a crew from the stage and go to a location, it costs, I don't know, but the total with renting the West Wing sets and taking a crew, renting the parking lots and all of that, was about, I don't know, I'm thinking of, remember, it's about $60,000 for a day. And I said, give me 30, and I'll build you the set by next week. And I talked to the director, and I said, well, what do we need? We don't need this whole room. All we need is columns that you can, track the president walking down through, and long corridor that you can do him having his speech. He says, that's all I need. So we do the design, and of course you present it to the producers, and they go, okay, cool, you've got 25 grand. And I was like, no, I need 30. To get it done by next Tuesday, it needs to be 30. So, we do 30. I remember we stenciling the gold carpet. It's just car paint on the red carpet. Done train crashes. I've built. We did an episode where we had to go to an oil rig, and it was too dangerous to shoot on the oil rig. Or we shot a little bit on the oil rig, but it was too dangerous to shoot them arriving at the oil rig. So I built this in a tank. That's the shot. Oh no, next one. This is the shot from the episode. And then, what am I showing? This is basically my process. This is a movie that hopefully we're going to come and shoot in Hungary next year, in France and Hungary. I'm going to use the tank here at the studio. So I do paintings, illustrations. This movie is about the raft of the Medusa. And where was the first one? So 2017 I started on this, and we still haven't made it. But, so I do these illustrations. The asylum. at the end, the painting is taken through the Parisian streets. There's a bar in there. And then, so there's my concept of what I think the bar should look like. Then we go scouting, and at the studio, there's this little space. I only had this one photograph of it. It's this tiny little space. But I then do a painting what I think it should look like when we're finished. We're on the ship. And then when I design sets, again, I'm a bit from the, I'm going to say old school, like Star Wars. Star Wars was, the first movie was only so rich in storytelling because they knew exactly what they were going to shoot. He never built more. So I storyboard. This is the scene where we're going to do the ship running aground. It hits a rock and water rushes in. And so I storyboard it to go, we only need this bit of the set. Of course, I talk to the director. I do these, and then I talk to the director. Actually, I did these. Which one was it? I did them without all this, because I was just concentrating on the set, and Peter Weber's going to direct, and he's like, oh, I want to stretch out time like you're in the submarine, and you hear the scraping, and the tension rises. And I was like, yeah, I'm only storyboarding for the major brushstrokes. But then I added those in after we had our conversation. That's that. And then I think this is the back lot here. Again, this is my process. This is a photograph of the back lot. I do a sketch of what I think it's going to look like. And then I take all the people out so we can actually see what we're doing. Because again, I do commercials that drives me crazy. There's a quick story. So I was doing a commercial a couple of weeks ago, or months ago, and we were having lunch on the Scout, and the producer and the director are sitting at a table, and they're in their 20s, early 30s, and the conversation goes like this. The director says to the producer, so you know Ridley Scott in the 70s was a very successful art director. And the producer says, oh, that's weird. I would have thought Ridley Scott would have come from the creative side of filmmaking. And that's the world we live in. I mean, well, in the commercial world, you have to take a photograph of every piece of furniture, I'm a plumber. There's no creativeness. And it doesn't matter. They want to talk to you at lunch about your work. Oh, you did Shawshank Redemption. They want to talk to you, but they don't, when you're going, this isn't going to work like this, they don't really want to hear it. They want to do it their way. And I understand the other day we did a quick online interview with a journalist, and his first question, it was for this, his first question was, I think it was like sort of, are you disappointed, or do you get disappointed, or are you sad that production designers don't get the recognition they deserve? And it threw me off because it's like, I don't really give a shit. I do what I do, I have fun, and I didn't do this for, what's my daughter keep telling me? Like, subscribe and like, or like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. I don't live in that world. And then just quickly, I'll show you this. So as a production designer, this is, right, will it play? Oh, whoops. So during 24, there was an episode where they didn't have time in a day to shoot some of this scene. The director, John, it was John's episode, and John said it was 3 hours they couldn't squeeze into the day. So John said, let Joseph direct it. And everyone's like, what do you mean? And he let Joseph direct it. And he said to me, all I need are 3 shots. The van backing up, the people being thrown in. And I think this one shot of the a big grey van, you'll see a big grey van pulling out and just men jumping out. That's all I need. You can do that in 3 hours easy. So of course I go home and I storyboard this sequence and I show it to him at breakfast and he's like, are you nuts? This is, I don't know, 16 setups? I don't know. You have 3 hours, he says. Don't worry, I've got it sorted. I got it all in my head. I'm going to walk down the street, I'm going to do this. Just make sure you get my 3 shots. So it only lasts a minute, this sequence. But from the point that the car explodes and hits the ground, I take over. And the shot of Kiefer Sutherland back at CTU and the shot of the boy inside the house looking out, that's not in the 3 hours that I shot this. Anyway, it's very bad quality when it's blown up. I only ever seen it on the YouTube. So, questions? Oh, no questions. Yes?
I have a question regarding controlling the color. So, the color you see on the set could be different when you see the same color on the screen of the final product.
No, there's not really any color correcting. Those are those yellows. I mean, I know that some colors that I won't use or whatever. I don't, there's no, it depends on what, the 24 we're talking about, I know how we're shooting it. I know what film we're shooting on. I know if I'm going to paint it that yellow. There's no tweaking. I mean, we didn't even do, there's not that, no, there's no sort of color correction. There's slight color correction. No DP's not going to not touch anything he's shot.
But also other films included. I wanted to ask you how you communicate with DP about the color.
Well, I do illustrations. So this is a constant battle, well, in my world. So I'm the production designer. I design the show. I have worked with the director for months, Peter, years. This is the look of the show. You can see from my illustrations from when I did the computer stuff for What Happened to Monday. It looks like that. Now, when the DP walks onto the set, because, again, when I'm prepping a show, especially like 24, the DP's not there. He's on stage. I'm prepping for 2 weeks. They're shooting another 2 shows those 2 weeks. So the DP's never there. But this 24, the look is established. But when you're doing a movie, not at the beginning, but eventually the DP doesn't turn up straight away. He eventually comes, or she. But that's why when I open the set, I design a set, it's built, it's approved, and then I walk away. I open the set in the morning and I never go back. Whatever they want to do, that's your world. Me and the director have talked what we thought it should look like, but if you now want to do your thing, you can. So that's why sometimes, that's why I'm, like I said, I'm the production designer. I have designed the movie with the director, and I've never been in a situation where the DP has been brought on that early. I mean, I've been in situations that they just completely do something different, but I mean, I worked on a TV show once where there was this wall in a bar, and so the wall was not plain. I cut it into big blocks and pushed some sections in and brought some sections out. And on the edges, I built lights into the wall. And then over the whole thing, I painted a mural, big heads, black and white. It was black and sepia. And you know, it was not a plain wall. It was a beautiful wall. Well, the morning of the shoot, I walk in and the DP has put lights up here with patterns and things to break up the wall. And I said, I don't understand. This is not a plain wall. What are you doing? And in the TV world, especially, you know, I was young and it was like, I'm the DP. And I know why he was doing it, because it's a beautiful wall and he's pissing on it. He's making his statement. I am the DP and the look of the show is me. I was like, okay, fine. So at that point, you go, I've designed a set, everybody approves it, I open the set, and then I leave and they can do whatever they like. Yes? What happens to the sets when they're done? When the episode is done? When the episode is done? Or the movie? A movie or television, because it's different. Okay, well, usually on a movie, you strike it. Unless you're in Romania and a couple of months later, the director calls and goes, you know Cayman's house that got cut out of the movie? Watch the Seagal movie, it's in it. But the TV shows, as you saw, I did the first 7 seasons. The guy who was too good for television and who did the pilot actually came back and did the last season. And I only left because I had been doing second unit and I wanted 2 episodes to direct. And that was my only, I'm leaving, or you let me direct, and they said no. And so I think they thought I would stay, but I left. It happened in the writers. They had a writers' strike at some point. That photograph, the next thing of Maggie Q, I directed and designed the live footage in between the game levels of Need for Speed Undercover, and I forgot what I was going to say. The strike. So while the strike was going on, we weren't doing 24. EA Games, Nilo again. He was working at EA Games, and he said, "I have somebody that will direct this stuff for you." And I was brought on. And so, but the strike finished about a week before we were going to shoot the EA Games thing. And I told production, I won't be at a production meeting next week because I'm directing all week this show. And literally the producer walked into my office, he closed the door, he said, okay, so you have to decide, either you're staying on 24 or are you leaving and going to shoot your video game? And I was like, I've been working on it for 10 weeks and we're a week away from shooting. I can't let these people down. I'll work till Friday and then I'll leave. He didn't even leave the office and make me sweat. He went, oh, I guess we'll have to work something out then. So I would have left on the Friday because I couldn't. One, I love doing what I love directing, but I couldn't let people down. We'd been prepping, and they paid me a lot of money. Probably more money for that month than I did all year on 24. So, but mainly it was. I mean, there wasn't money at all. It was because I couldn't. They were a week away from shooting. How can you? So anyway, sorry, back to your question. Sets. So the production designer who came back to do that 8th season flattened everything. Again, ego. Just get rid of everything. You saw that I keep things and I change them and I build them. You start sets might not be used, but because I'm in a warehouse in the valley, it's my world. And so I never struck anything. There was the one shot, what is this? There was one photograph I didn't talk about. I skipped past it. But so I used to have it was an office building with 2 big warehouses and a corridor out to the parking lot, but above was another bit of warehouse space. And I knocked these windows out so that I could hang backings, because when you build a set on stage, I don't know if I'll be able to find it, when you build a set on stage, the backing hits the floor. You can't be on a 17-story building. But because this was my building and I knocked holes through the wall when I built sets, I could hang backing, so you could get almost, you can get up to the window and the backing used to fall. Where is it? But anyway, so yes, I keep sets, but movies generally, especially after some set designer on Star Trek years ago stole lots of things from a movie set, rubbish bins. So they shot The Hunt for Red October on the Paramount lot. And when they struck the submarine sets, they chucked everything in these big bins. And I'm walking past these big bins, and I'm like, oh, this is great stuff. And I'm taking all this stuff, and I'm putting it, and we use it to build a set in, on one of the episodes. And when the movie comes out, some journalist made a comment that the Hunt for October such and such room reminded me very much of a Star Trek Next Generation episode that was on 6 months ago, because the movie takes 6 months to come out. We do an episode of Star Trek and it comes out within a month. So they make sure they burn everything. Otherwise there's some kid that's going to steal stuff. But again, so, but movies, usually they strike it all. Unless the production's made a deal that in Romania, I think Rafaela made a deal, we'll keep a couple of sets. And if you go to the Romanian studio, Castel, they've kept castle sets. You go there because there's a standing castle set or whatever. And, and on a TV show, you're only given one stage and a little area. So they build a set and strike it, but 24, that's why I was lucky. It was my world. I had huge, huge spaces that I could do my own thing in. Again, why that retreat with the water was so big. I mean, that took up half the stage. Half the stage was CTU. And when I say stage, we're talking, I don't even know in meters, but big, bigger than most sound stages. Anything else? Yes?
In the film, Eiko and Shioka designed the costumes, which were quite amazing and extreme. And I was wondering if the costumes had an effect on the look of the production of the film.
I love this question. So the question is, Eiko was the designer, costume designer on Dracula, and did her designs have an influence on the set? And this answers the original production designer. So the production designer should oversee everything. When we worked on Hook, Anthony Powell, who had Oscars for costume design, would come to the art department. He's a lovely, beautiful man, old man. He'd walk into the art department and he'd look at the models we were building, and he's like, oh, I don't know if I could design costumes that will complement these sets. And this is Anthony Powell, all right? Amazing, man. So I don't know what happened on Dracula, because the first day of the shoot, Eiko walks onto the set, and I hear all this commotion, and I said to the actor, what's happening? He said, oh, Eiko's walked onto the set, and she said that this set will not work for her costume. So again, I think I've said it to some people this week. If you write a book on Eiko, if I ever write a book, Hodges on Hodges, shoot me, all right? If you're that far up your own arse that you're writing a book, Eiko on Eiko, you are working To me, that's my world. You're working for the production designer. You work together. You don't, obviously there was no collaboration. I'm guessing that she didn't want to collaborate, and she just did her thing. And again, my personal opinion, you know, she's heads on plates and things, and his armor that was just like a lobster. But that's my personal opinion. Art is subjective. I'm happy to stand here and everyone go, oh, he's saying this about Aiko on Aiko. She's whatever. But our fight for Nilo is amazing, and art is subjective, and that's why when you're given control of a show or a movie, a director goes, you're my production designer and you do what you want to do, then that's your vision. If you, I don't know if you can still buy Laura Ashley wallpaper, can you? You know, that would be my thing. Couldn't be, unless like the movie I'm going to do with Peter Weber, it's a period piece. I'm not going to be playing much. I'm doing a period piece. It's serious. I'm not creating a James Bond movie that is playful or whatever. I'm doing a serious piece. This morning's What Happened to Monday. It was the first time I've ever seen it on the big screen. I couldn't tell you that it had a look. I was just scrambling the whole time just to get get it made. I'm sure, because Nilo says I have a look. Obviously, I do have a look. It's that, it's Thunderbirds. When I can play, I play, but I can, if you ask me to do, that's why Peter Weber, he saw What Happened to Monday, and he said to Raffaella, I want Joseph to do, it's called The Raft and the Medusa, I want Joseph to do The Raft and Medusa, and she said, but that's not his style or something. He's never done something like that. And Peter said, no, I can see from that movie, he's a great production designer or a good production designer. I want him. He's a good production designer. It doesn't matter if you're going to do A or Z. You show me a picture and I'll make it. I've heard John Cassara, when we finished 24, he did other pilots and things, and he said to me, it's amazing. I don't understand how it happens. I shoot a pilot, the production designer shows me drawings and illustrations, I approve them, they build the set, I walk onto the set and I have difficulty connecting the illustration to the set. When you do a drawing, whether it's a pencil sketch of an airplane, when I walk onto the set, I've walked into the drawing. There was no discussion. When I had to do that drawing, I only did that drawing because the producers didn't quite understand what I was describing, and I looked at John and it was like, he said, just do the drawing. I get what you're talking about, but just do the drawing. So I did the drawing, and but he's amazed. He said it's amazing how sometimes people will show him sets, and again, we live in a world that you've arrived on a movie, you've been hired on a movie, but they've been doing conceptual art for previous months. And it's always the same. Big shaft of light, little person. It's a great conceptual art, but we can't afford it. So that's why I tend to do my own stuff, and I'm a production designer. I design the production. That's what I'm collaborative with people, but because I can save money. The parking lot, the roof, from day one, I said we should be. Imagine the time that we would have saved if they had said 3 months before, let's just build it in the parking lot. Hours in the truck, in the van, driving around, trying to find that location. And eventually we were there. And it was brilliant because there was no roof like that. It was great. Anything else? Yes.
Can you finish the jazz club story?
The which?
The jazz club story. Can you finish it? How was it? What's the real end?
Did I not finish it?
No. I know there is a further next
No. Where did I finish? I said the music. The director couldn't afford the piece of music.
Yeah, and then you can see the picture of the cloud somewhere else.
I don't know. I don't remember what I told you. See the picture. What picture? I don't know. I swore I would never work for that production designer, and then, because it was my first job as an art director, I think. And he got a movie straight away called The Kiss. No, that was the original. I can't remember. Anyway, it was all set in a New York apartment, and I thought, how difficult could it be? It was difficult. You want to hire somebody like that to do, if you're doing renovations at your house, so that the marble on the floor is perfect and whatever. When we're shooting a movie, why are we laying real white marble? I don't even have a dead body in a pool of blood on close-ups. Well, let's just scenic it. We got great scenic artists, let's paint it. But no, this production designer wanted to. Was the story, I just thought, when I was told to stop building the set,
Yes, and then you can see the same cloud in a different movie. The cloud was existed and the guy...
okay, the club. Okay, so the production designer hands me this illustration, a pencil drawing with colored pencils, and in the top corner, he's kind of done this silver thing. And whatever we're drawing up, we're drawing up, he goes, no, this is an air conditioner. Oh, right, okay. So anyway, because this production designer is so controlling, we're building this facade for the movie in Los Angeles and shipping it to New York to put it on location. And that's what we do. We build the facade, they ship it to New York, and they put it in front of a building, and it's there. A few years later, a year later, I'm watching a Scorsese movie or something, and there's the bar front. Exactly the same. And I'm thinking, but we struck the set. How could our production designer's design be in a Scorsese movie? No, Scorsese is shooting in New York at the real bar that my production designer on my movie had just copied. He didn't even say he'd copied it. He could have just shown us the photograph of the place that was in New York, and we could have just built from that. But he did a drawing trying to pass it off as his design. Oh, I need it exactly like this. So we wasted money. So we built a set in Los Angeles, shipped it to New York, shot it, and there was actually an existing facade, real facade in New York. That's the story? Thank you. Thank you.